Konnichiwa, Toreina no minasama, and welcome back to PJL Books. Today, on the A to Z of Japan, we are at a very special post. Yeah, a bit of a one-off, maybe. Today I'm I'm so excited, I can't talk. Today, I'm going to talk about Pokémon Go. So, Pokémon Go launched in Japan last Friday, the Friday just gone, July 22nd. Well, that's later than most other major markets in the world. Now, some of you may be wondering how that came to be. Surely Japan, of all countries, should be out of the gates first when it comes to Pokémon-related releases, yeah? Well, rumours were abound as to reasons why, from settling lucrative deals with McDonald's so their restaurants double up as Pokestops, to seeing how the game played out in other markets so the launch in Japan could be smoother. In the end, the answer was probably a combination of these, plus timing it for the summer holidays which started on that very day in Japan. Except, Pokémon Go doesn't really aim itself at kids. Not really. I mean, for one thing, it's a smartphone app, and the typical audience of Pokémon don't have their own phones, or at the very least aren't old enough that their parents are comfortable letting their offspring wander around the streets waving an expensive piece of hardware around. And also there's the fact that the Pokémon roster is, for now, the original crew. Yeah, the original generation, the original 151. And Pokémon Go is throwing itself squarely at the late 20-somethings and early 30-somethings who grew up with the original games and see Pokémon Go as a way to not just massage the nostalgia glands, but also fulfill a childhood fantasy, to wander around the world for real and actually capture Pokémon, albeit in an augmented reality, yeah? Now, I'd heard of how Pokémon Go had reignited Pokémon fever in my native UK well before it had hit Japanese shores, seeing updates from my Facebook feed of friends and family boasting their captures, and my family's shared chat hustling their way across town when they caught wind of a rare Pokémon sighting, like a cross between birdwatching and a military operation. But it was only when I recently visited New Zealand did it really hit home. Albert Park in central Auckland was full of people wandering around with their phones in hand, laughing and chasing invisible creatures and each other. I saw pubs and shops with signs at the door declaring wearily, "No, there are no Zubats in here." The morning news ran a whole segment on it. Once again, just like that chilly autumn in 1999, the rumbling steamroller of Pokémon fever had charged over the world again, and once again, I was on the back end of it, only this time I was in Japan, watching the outside world fall under its spell before it hit me. I didn't mind that too much as it came out late here, really. Personally, I was just delighted to see the world fall completely under the Pokémon spell again. I've always been a cheerleader for the franchise, and I have fond memories of the period from Christmas 99 through to summer 2000 being completely immersed in the Pokeverse. But when the app finally came out here, it was time to put away the rose-tinted glasses, take to the streets with my phone in hand, and try it out. Now, the first thing that struck me was just how minimalistic the gameplay is. In fact, I'd struggle to even call it a game, really. Sure, you can collect Pokemon as they leap out at you, and there are gyms that you can try your hand at, but that's about it. There's no trainer-to-trainer communication in the game yet, so there's no trading and no peer-to-peer combat. You don't even fight wild Pokemon with your own, you just toss Pokeballs at them, with maybe a few extra luring items like raspberries thrown in for good measure. Essentially, it's a beefed-up version of the Safari Zone that I remember from the first couple of games. Now, for many, including myself, this lack of some of the key mechanics we've come to know and love from the Pokémon franchise means that Pokémon Go isn't just minimalistic, it's unfinished. There's very little meat in the way of the game. Now, at first, this frustrated me. The fact that I can't properly train my Pokémon, only bulk them with items called Stardust and Candy, which feels, artificial somehow, means that I have so far failed to get into any of the gyms. Now, I don't wish to generalise, but I'm competing against Japanese folk after all, which means that I'm competing against a lot of people who are committed to often unhealthy levels of games like this. But as I wandered around my neighbourhood and park collecting Pokemon and passing Pokestops, I realised that none of that really mattered. I would look up from my phone and see loads of other people out and about, many of whom were playing Pokemon Go too. It was like people had emptied out into the streets to find that everyone else was listening to the same song or reading the same book as you. As thin as the gameplay for Pokemon Go is, it is the ultimate icebreaker for socializing, and even better because it happens outside in the real world, not just over the internet. That's a huge benefit for everyone around the world, of course, but in Japan, it could prove especially wonderful. Now again, without meaning to sound judgmental, a good portion of the people I saw wandering around were, well, nerds, including me. Pale, socially awkward guys and gals who would otherwise be cooped up in a dark room playing some other MMORPG. They were out, striding around the streets and grass, sometimes with one or two friends in tow. I was genuinely heartened to see this. It was joyful. And it's not just me who feels this way. There are hopes that Pokemon Go could entice the hikikomori, the Japanese word for people who are shut-ins who cut themselves off from society, get them outside and improve their mental health. And let's not forget the physical health benefits too. My favourite part of Pokemon Go right now is simply finding the different Pokemon Pokestops littered about the place. I mean, I'm fond of walking at the best of times, but I usually take the quickest, most direct route to where I need to go. Now, with Pokemon Go in hand, I don't mind taking a meandering route to the supermarket if it means snagging a couple more Pokestops on the way. The GPS map constantly teases you with the promise of more Pokestops on the horizon, daring you to venture into new corners of your own neighbourhood. And boy, have I learned a lot about my neighbourhood in the past 72 hours. I have discovered at least 2 shrines, 1 temple that doubled up as a kid's playground, a small pond, and a local restaurant I'd never knew existed before. And I'm not the only one. The normally quiet back streets are suddenly fortified with other trainers plunging into new parts of town. Without realising it, I had walked in about 10 kilometres yesterday, and I'm sure I would have walked even more if the game wasn't so hungry for battery power. Now of course, with a phenomenon this big, it was bound to catch the attention of the news outlets around the world, and Japan is no exception. And news being news, it feels compelled to find the negative, especially when it comes to video games, no matter how minuscule, and blow it out of all proportion in the name of balanced reporting. I'm sure you've all heard of the incidents of trespassing, car accidents, finding dead bodies, playing it in a Holocaust monument, and finding landmines as well as a result of playing Pokemon Go. But let's keep a sense of perspective here. These are isolated incidents, dwarfed by a much bigger narrative of positivity. Let's look back at Japan now. Now, Japan is a nation of about 125 million people, and this weekend, well over half of the people I passed on the street were playing Pokemon Go, easily over half. We don't have official figures yet, but engagement figures above that of even Twitter say that it's safe to say that at least millions of people in Japan are playing Pokemon Go right now. And yet, I still keep seeing this one news article, just the one news article of negativity of the one and only bad incident caused by Pokemon Go in Japan, of a uni student falling down some stairs. That's it. Just the one out of the millions of people playing Pokemon Go, and yet this is the only negative thing that's being really pushed. I mean, why focus on all the negativity? Why keep highlighting the stupid and the tragic? You could literally place any dumb activity that ends with the sentence, "while playing Pokemon Go," with any other verb or activity, and I guarantee that's also happened in the past. Newsflash, if people are flocking outdoors for this game, you're going to see a lot more outdoor accidents. And as with literally any other game in the world, virtual or real, Monopoly, soccer, blah blah blah, there's always going to be people who take things too far. And these negative incidents really shouldn't put anyone off trying their hand at this game. Not only are they minuscule in the grand scale of things, but the goodness that Pokémon Go brings to the table is well worth it, regardless of who you are. If you're a lone wanderer like me, it gives purpose to your wanderings. With mates, you have a framework to your socialising outside of the house, as well as a buddy to back you up in taking down a gym. Between parent and child, you have that essential bridge of communication with a parent who has that all-important smartphone and the child aching to play Pokémon Go. So together, they set out into the sunlight on the ultimate bonding exercise. For Japan, a nation full of shy and socially awkward people, this is crucial stuff. Here's hoping it lasts, as long as they add in training and battling soon. And that's it for today's A to Z of Japan. Thank you very much for listening, readers. I hope you enjoyed this special. If you did, let me know in the comments, and please give me a thumbs up like. Perhaps I'll do something more like this in the future as well. Maybe a follow-up if you liked it so much, so let me know. Otherwise, there are links to my A to Z of Japan blog in the description below, along with links to my website and all of my social media as well, so please check those out. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time. Sayonara.